Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creators Lounge podcast. I am your host, Jaye, and welcome back to another exciting episode. So I'm really excited to dig into this artist and kind of learn more about his world. My man, give us the introduction. Who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do?
Hi guys, I'm Chrylo. I am 23. I don't think that's relevant, but I'm from the United Kingdom.
All right.
And I kind of make disco music, French house.
Fantastic.
That's pretty much it.
It's some pretty dope music as well. You've been involved in music for quite some time. Talk about the early days of your career. What kind of music were you making at that time? You know, what was like your energy and what was it like?
Well, before Chrylo, this was like 6 years ago. I ended up making like a joke alias called Crisis Chris, which is probably like the most shameful like name to have as an artist. And I just started like learning FL Studio, making like small EDM, and to be honest, like go back on it now, it don't sound that great. And then probably about 2 years ago, I just got really like bored one day, downloaded Ableton. It's like, okay, my friends are making lo-fi music, I'm just gonna start making like disco. I kind of like to joke off them, and then it kind of like accidentally kicked off, really.
That's so interesting. I love that. So what started off as a joke has now become quite serious and something you actually care about, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of consider it more as like a hobby. Like I'm constantly every day kind of just like looking back at like my SoundCloud, or like thinking of something new to write anyway.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. No, I think it's so interesting how like we kind of undervalue the genius of a joke, you know, but it can actually be so interesting and it can be so meaningful and fun, obviously, as well, you know, and it brings so much creativity to the scene. So going from FL Studio to Ableton to jokes and to like making the kind of stuff you're making right now, you are now producing and sharing music under the name Chrylo. Give us some information.
Yes.
First of all, what does that name mean? Where did it come from?
Well, there's two versions of the name, but I think I'll just stick with saying the safe way. So my name, like my real name, is Chris, which it's not really like private information. And I just used the three first letters of my name, so CHR, and then I was kind of just in Paint adding like different letters after my name, because I didn't want to have an artist name of Crisis Chris still, because that was pretty embarrassing. And then it just ended up being like YLO, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
It's got a nice ring to it. It sounds good. Oh man, that's awesome. That's great. So this is really interesting to hear this backstory, because you know it goes from like kind of being like a joke, kind of side thing, a hobby. You make this name up in Paint, and it just keeps going and going. And it's pretty awesome, especially what you built it into, because I really love your project. I love the music you make and everything you share. Artwork is incredible as well. But you actually consider Chrylo to be a two-person project. Tell us about that.
Yes. So originally, when I started it up, one of my other friends, they were posting on the same account with kind of roughly the same music, and then she backed off recently. It was probably the start of January when she said that she'll like stop producing, and then I took the forefront, and then she said, because she's got like other things to do with her life really, and she said you'll just help out with like promotion. So I think she's like still passionate about it, but she's more or less staying on like the promotion side.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to think what else she does. I think it's just a promotion.
Sure.
She'll watch it back and like hit me or something.
How interesting. That's pretty cool though. It's cool for her that she's still into production and this is the way she can stay plugged into the scene, you know, still have a hand in it, you know?
Yeah. I don't think she's super interested like in it right now, because like she's almost finished university and she's almost like got a full-time job anyway.
Right.
So I think eventually she'll just have to like step down, and I'll be like, okay, that's fine.
Yep. Okay, I got it. Makes sense. Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, you're the driving energy behind it, the one actually doing the production, making the music, and everything for sure. And
Yeah.
talk to us about Chrylo's sound, because I think a lot of the audience hasn't heard you before. So, how would you describe Chrylo's sound, and what kind of music do you make with that moniker?
Oh man, that's a good question. I haven't been really asked that before. Chrylo is kind of like a mix of disco elements with French house, with the techniques of probably future funk, but I don't like to consider myself future funk. I like to be very specific about like what I upload. You'll probably just be hearing either like flips of songs into a disco track, or just like funky bass lines with just guitar licks. That's literally it. Some of like my upcoming stuff is probably exactly that, with probably just some vocals from someone. I don't know else how to describe it. It's very upbeat, up tempo. Like,
Radical. No, I love it for sure,
Yeah.
man. And it's what's so cool about it is that disco is like a genre that a lot of people have forgotten about, but it's clearly something you still like to walk with and listen to. What draws you to the disco sound?
I think just the bass lines itself. Like if I'm hearing like a really funky bass line, but it's like repetitive, it kind of keeps drawing me in. And especially like the slap sound from a bass, that always gets me. I'm like, oh yeah, I like that sound. And I think it's just really the bass lines or like the guitars. It's kind of like the old like Bee Gees like guitar sound with probably kind of like Earth, Wind and Fire like style with like bass lines.
Sure, man.
I've noticed like disco starting to come in like the mainstream media. Dua Lipa, Doja Cat, they've kind of like incorporated like the disco sound. So I think it sometimes like dips out of the underground into mainstream, then goes back underground, which I kind of like because it's still the nostalgic feel of like listening to it.
Yeah, for sure. I think the nostalgia is really strong with disco. I know for myself personally, I grew up with the mother who loved listening to disco stuff. So I was always hearing disco sounds from the '70s and some stuff from the '80s as well. But yeah, I think it's a really cool genre. Have you always been into disco, or was it something that you kind of rediscovered later in your life?
It was more of what I like rediscovered later in my life, because like I grew up like in a background of like rock, metal, like 80s rock, 90s rock, and then by the time I got to high school, I started like investigating like pop music, and then that's kind of like where it hit off. And then I'd say like listening to pop, it kind of just went into the subgenre of like disco and started like hearing things, and I was like, okay, I quite like disco actually.
That's awesome.
It's probably where it like progressed from.
Yeah, I love that. No, it's really cool. And like you said, like anyone could get into disco. It's just the fact that it's not pushed as much as it has been in the past, that people don't hear it, and there's so much magic in disco to be discovered. So I do hope that we can keep spreading the disco sound, get more people hearing it. And let's talk about your influences, because that's kind of what you mentioned just now about growing up with like 80s and 90s rock. You have a huge range of influences, everything from 80s and 90s rocks, Ariana Grande, Years and Years. Talk about your biggest influences and how do they affect your music production?
Ooh. Starting off Chrylo, my influences obviously were Daft Punk, as every other disco artist like starting out, and then kind of like I kind of grew up constantly playing One More Time by Daft Punk. I ended up like recreating it, even with like the bad auto tune of like my voice. It didn't sound great. I'm not gonna like send it anywhere, so don't get your hopes up. And it progressed from there, and then I started listening to stuff on like SoundCloud, and I came across someone called Discoholic, and his like sound is exactly like the name of disco. That really like resonated with me. And then the thing what introduced me into future funk was like the whole Young Bay thing, and I really like his sound. And I think I started like incorporating like the same techniques, like listen to them. I could like recognize like techniques they use like within the music and just like incorporate into my sound. So it's kind of like an evolution of like going off electronic, kind of going more like new disco, modern disco type. And with like the pop scene, the only reason like I take influences from pop is because like I probably go to clubs every like 4 to 5 weeks sometimes, and it's either I'm like really drunk or I'm not. I'm in the club listening to a song, concentrating on how like the audiences resonate with the sound, and I've kind of like I've probably tricked myself in thinking I've got like the perfect structure in how like you play it in a club. You could probably play the whole song and people will still be interested. And I've kind of just taken like influences from obviously club scenes, revolving around pop. I really just like the female vocals. I'm pretty sure everyone loves like female vocals on their track anyway. I mean, I personally think if you make a disco track without vocals, it's not going to resonate with people as much as vocals do, compared to like probably every other track. Like if people listen to probably an Ariana Grande song or a Billie Eilish song without the vocals, it'll probably be a different tone. Yeah, and everyone would be. They probably wouldn't listen to it as much as it probably like is listened to now.
Yeah, for sure. Although I'm thinking of that I don't know if it's called a subgenre or not, but on YouTube how you can find like the male version of Bad Guy or the male version of Greedy.
Yeah,
or whatever,
I've seen those.
Yeah,
I don't really want to like touch those.
Yeah, obviously. Oh man, that was kind of interesting though, talking about the club scene, and I want to dig into that a little bit more. So you go to the clubs somewhat frequently, and what is it about clubs that you like so much? And you also mentioned like that you kind of read the atmosphere of the club. So are you like on purpose, are you analyzing it, or is it just something subconsciously you're noticing?
Not really. Like I only noticed it like it was probably like last year in September, October time. I went to an event around my university where this like famous DJ comes down and they perform. So I went to it. However, I didn't really get like too drunk, and I was in the club. I was kind of like looking around, and everyone was kind of we're used to about like 30 seconds of the song, and then like a big drop or like heavy resonation like between the whole crowd and the DJ. But this DJ really didn't have like great DJ presence, or the song choice wasn't right. However, I wasn't really drunk, so I started noticing things, and from then, even being drunk, I've kind of noticed like what resonates with the crowd. I'm not a DJ myself, I'm just like picking out like the song choices which they kind of do. Sometimes I like it to resonate with myself as well, because I don't think I could be drunk like in a club and not really like either dance or like the music.
Yeah, man,
I think everything's got to be like very versatile. Everyone's got to like it. But that's like the DJ scene. I'm not really a DJ myself, but
yeah, but I mean, it's interesting that you can still see these kind of insights, and even those kind of insights, like reading the crowd, seeing how people are reacting to stuff, can be valuable for music production as well. Don't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think if like my music was actually played live, then I hope it goes well. Whoever performs my music, I'm not going to do it personally myself. I just don't have an interest in doing it. It probably might change in the future. Whatever, if someone comes up to me like, yo, do you want to DJ something? I'm like, give me about a month to decide.
And then say, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, dude, it would be awesome, man. Well, it's cool because you're kind of laying the groundwork for that, right? Like, you know, going to clubs and kind of observing how it works there. The music that you make yourself, you know, you do have the mental groundwork to branch into that at some point if you did want to.
Yeah.
And you mentioned not only that, because you're kind of studying more about that, either subconsciously or consciously or a mix of both. You're kind of studying about like DJing, but you also mentioned about like with music production, how some of your biggest influences are people like Daft Punk or Young Bay, and you kind of like learn from them as well, and you're applying it to your sound as well. Do you feel confident with the music that you're making right now?
Currently, yes and no. Oh, don't know what happened with my computer then. There we go. it's good. Currently, yes and no. Yes, meaning I like the sound that I'm uploading and liking that people are liking the sound when I'm releasing it. Really gives me the buzz to even make more. And the reason why I said no is because when I upload a song, I go straight to Ableton and I'll probably make something. It probably won't be the same mood, but I'll really like it. And then a month down the line, I'll release it, and then it'll probably get more attraction. And then I'm more or less half and half with either sticking to my own sound or constantly evolving it into something what people constantly like. It's kind of, I find it like quite hard to stick to one specific sound, which comes to a question like, have I really found my sound? I wouldn't consider like disco to find really a sound. It's more of like a movement than a sound.
How interesting.
Or like an emotion.
Yeah.
With disco.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, right? I mean, like disco is kind of like hip hop in that they're both, like you said, kind of movements, you know, with certain thought philosophies and kind of action behind the genre itself. It's more than just music, for sure. Is it important for you to find your sound?
Personally, not really. I don't consider it as like an important step in my music career. I'm more or less doing this as a hobby, not as like a profession. So if it was a profession, then I'd definitely like try find my sound and constantly like work on it and keep it like roughly the same.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But,
get it all curated and how you want it to be. Like, and you keep mentioning that it is primarily just a hobby. Do you have any ambitions for the Chrylo project specifically? Like, what are your hopes and plans for the Chrylo project, like longer term?
Long term, I don't really have any milestones for like my music project. It's more or less something I do in like my downtime. If I upload something, get new followers, it makes me happy seeing that people really like my music, and then seeing like my followers go up, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. People are probably noticing me more in the scene. Long term is quite a hard question. I don't really know what's in store long term for Chrylo or like ambitions for it. Don't really have like a set goal. I more or less just keep doing it and doing it and doing it.
Fantastic. I think, which is already great already.
I feel like if I stop uploading, probably like my active listeners who listen to like my stuff like almost every day, I've noticed, they'll probably be like a bit confused, like, oh my god, why has he stopped making music?
Where's he gone? What's happening?
I'll just like slowly lose followers, but on the numbers side, I'm not really like bothered about like the numbers. Probably the followers are more like bothered about, because it's like a big like flex, and it's like got the kudos behind it, like, oh yeah, I've got 700 followers and SoundCloud. Like, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of gives the ego boost for sure. No, it's interesting. It's kind of cool actually that you think of music as a hobby and that's okay for you. I know that so many producers who I meet, they have kind of that pressure that you have to do it as a career. You know, you have to be improving. You have to be doing better and better. Why do you personally not feel that kind of pressure, and how are you able to just do it because you love it?
Well, currently I'm studying music technology, and realizing that trying to get into music production is like 1 in a million of being famous. So I've kind of just got a bit on a realistic route and tried to find myself like a real job or something related to music which isn't music production, because I feel like you have to spend quite a few years to even get like the big break, like as what artists say. It's like I like to keep a realistic tone and like keep anything what's the word, keep anything as a hobby, like stayed as a hobby rather than like focusing heavily on a career.
Okay, gotcha. Kind of keep stuff in perspective then.
Yeah.
Makes sense, man. Makes sense for sure. It's still cool, and you make some fantastic music for sure. So I, along with everyone else who listens to it, definitely enjoys what you do. What are some of the cool achievements that you have achieved, though, over the past several years with the Chrylo project, and in general, but some of the cool achievements to you that you've seen happen?
I think it's mainly just on YouTube. Like one day someone will send me like a YouTube link, and it'll probably be on like a YouTube channel which has probably over 200,000 subscribers, and I'll see that it's uploaded on there. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm liking this. And then like probably like a month later it happens again, and I think those are like the only big achievements really, like what I've had with the Chrylo project. Obviously it comes along with like collaborations, but if I got a big collaboration with Jaye, I probably wouldn't go around being like, this is my biggest achievement yet. I'm collaborating with Jaye, oh my god.
Yeah.
If that happens, I'll probably quit like my actual job and like take music as probably a serious passion.
Let's go, man. Let's go. That'd be epic for sure. I want to dig into that just a tiny bit if you don't mind. Like, is that something... I'm curious for you. You're talking here about how it's a hobby to you, but if something like that happened, like a big breakup situation happened for you, you would kind of pursue it more full time. What is holding you back from like doing music full time? Is it just like the realistic side of it, or is it just the lack of interest, or?
I think it's more or less like every day I wake up, I look up my stats on SoundCloud. I roughly get about 1,000 plays like each week, which. It isn't bad, but it's not unlike the... Yeah. I'm like quite happy with it. If I get less or more, it still doesn't bother me, but if it says like 1 million plays within a day, then I'm like, okay, I know where I can make some serious money from this, if this is going off. And then just be one of those like one-hit wonders. And then like earn loads of money, go on holiday, hide for like the rest of my life, invest money, and then I'm set for life.
Set for life, man. The dream life for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But taking this stuff into consideration though, because I think there's a lot of listeners to this podcast that are envious of getting 1,000 plays a week, and getting featured on bigger YouTube channels and stuff like that. What would you say to them on how to achieve things like that? What's the best way for other musicians to have these kind of achievements in their own careers?
If you're starting as like a small-time producer, probably 100 or less followers, probably more, even so. Just what I tend to do is kind of stick to Reddit. Reddit has like got the audiences where they actually listen to your stuff. Probably send it to 3 of your friends. Probably not actively, because they might find it a tiny bit annoying, like constantly sending you like the same link, but it's a song and you're just basically telling them to listen to it. I think people get a bit bothered by that, like sending it personally. I wouldn't really worry about like your numbers. As soon as like you start making your tracks and carrying it on, you'll probably start achieving stability on like your views, your stats. Your followers will probably start going up. I think it really plays into kind of keep stability with like SoundCloud if you're starting out. So like upload one song like every like 2 weeks on a Tuesday, because that 2 weeks gives like the space for your track to breathe and let your stats kind of like flow around, and then do it again, and then your stats will probably like start going up, someone will repost it, and then you'll probably get more. Another consideration is like obviously the production side as well. If you've got great production, it's probably going to be recognized instantly, quite a few people, and you probably get a good like 1,000 or more plays. But don't worry about like your quality control. More or less focus on yourself going up rather than like doing it straight away.
That's awesome. Man.
That's a great way to start.
Yeah, I love that. But then the two key things there for listeners, first of all, consistency, which is incredibly powerful. The more consistent you can get your stuff, the more kind of an audience you can build around that consistency, so they know what to expect and where to be at what time. So consistency, as he said. And then the other thing is focus on yourself a lot, which I also highly, highly recommend. Keep building yourself, your skills, your mindset, understand who you are. Those things I absolutely agree with. Yeah, there's consistency and keep building yourself. Very, very influential for building yourself in any kind of art form. So I want to dig into your personal life just a little bit to give people some context to the stuff we're talking about here. You have studied music at university. What was that like, and was it beneficial for you?
It was highly beneficial for me, actually, because if I took like quite a serious like subject, let's say biochemistry or whatever, something which isn't in like the creative industry, I probably wouldn't really like look into detailed things about music technology or music production as like my courses like offered me. So I think that kind of just gives me like the edge of like where I can apply it to like my music anyway. And sometimes I like to share some of like my knowledge with like some of my close friends, really. So it's quite fulfilling, like telling someone something that they're either doing something right or wrong, and then they obviously build on it and like their music starts sounding like even better, which is kind of like, it's really nice to know that they're either like listening or probably just not listening.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to learn knowledge and share it as well and see it benefit others and not just yourself, for sure. What do you feel are the best ways to learn about music?
I feel like the best way to learn is just listen to music which is like around you and hear what everyone else is doing. Try not copy what they're doing, but understand like the creativity and like what they've gone through. Mainly just like understand and appreciate others rather than being like daunted by everyone else. That's a great way to really think about it.
Yeah, man, for sure. I love that. It's really good, for sure. Yeah. No, I agree. And beyond that, more recently, you've been launched your own mixing and mastering service. Let's talk about that for a quick minute. How has it been going, and what are the biggest challenges for balancing that project along with music production and everything else that you do?
Well, this like business, it's more of like freelance agency. So currently I own a team. They either go out or I pay for like promotion on them. Either find clients to do it with, or just they have like their own connections and they like feed it through like my business, and we kind of sort it out then. It was only like started about 4 months ago, because this was about just ending university. It was kind of like my final year project, and I didn't really want to come out of university without like a proper job or anything, so I kind of just aspired to like do that, so I don't feel like quite bad about myself that I'm either going home without a job, really. Try to manage like that alongside doing music. It's quite easy actually, because I get to like select my own hours, like when I kind of like focus like around it. More or less I either do like producing sometimes in the day for about 2-3 hours, and then at night when I've like settled down, I'm on my computer. I normally go through like my business and like speak to the people under me and just like make sure they're like either on track or seeing like what's going on, and I normally like update people what's going on. I like to be very social with like the people who I work under, rather than like stale business like where people have to read stuff.
Yeah, no, dude, I agree on that point a lot. I think that human communication makes up like so much of every single thing, whether it's an office job or a music production job or whatever. Like having the skills to communicate with people, that is invaluable, for sure. And you mentioned already that you kind of like being able to make your own music and then do the business at night as well.
Yeah.
Are you a multitasker?
Not at the same time, but if I plan like what I'm gonna be doing, then yes.
Sure. Okay.
I wouldn't be able to do two things at once. Like I get really confused.
Yeah.
And then I end up like tripping up on myself.
Yeah.
I've done it quite a few times before, and I didn't like it. This is why I'm like doing like the music during the day and then like the business at night.
Awesome, man. Awesome. It's important to know that kind of stuff, right? To know your work style and how you deal with stuff like that. Is focusing on a project are distractions? Is that hard for you to manage those kind of things, focusing and distractions? It sounds like you make plans already to kind of negate any negative side effects, but how do you deal with focus and distraction?
Well,
like
I get distracted very easily.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like talking with a friend, like either about like music or like the business, I'm just like I have Facebook open definitely on like another screen. But sometimes if I want to go like full focus mode, I'll probably like either close Facebook. As tempting as it is to just open Chrome and just do 2 clicks away to Facebook, or even YouTube and just spend about an hour watching some random video, which I probably don't intend to.
Yep.
I kind of just like close everything, try to get my brain in like either work mode or music mode. To kind of like kickstart those off, I kind of like have the thing open. I'll probably be distracted like at the same time, but I try like force myself like going into it, and then naturally it kind of just like sticks onto the same subject, and then I end up like forgetting like either Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah, man. Fantastic. No, it's hard, right? It's hard for everyone, I think, to kind of plug in and settle down and do what needs done. I think that itself is one thing that can be the difference between a successful and a non-successful artist. To you, what do you think are the biggest differences between artists who do make it and artists that eventually fizzle out and never, blow up or have their moment of fame? What do you think the difference is between those two?
Ooh.
Because we have seen like underground artists, who have made it quite successful and had their names, around the globe. But so, what is the difference between the ones who do and the ones who don't make it, in your opinion?
I feel like the people who do make it, they get more influenced, and they get like more excited because they're obviously going to be making money from like their full-time job, which will probably be a musician at the point, and they kind of have like the control in what they want to do, which is pretty good. And then the artists which like fizzle out, I think personally, kind of looking at like that area, it's either probably going to be 2 reasons, like one being a personal reason, or the other where they're kind of focusing too much on like their statistics and wanting to be famous and wanting to like have lots of money to their name, which you kind of have to have a bit of like realism in knowing that you're either going to make it or you're not. It's kind of a bit of a grey area to like think about whether you are going to make it or not. And I think people who make those decisions, I feel like they're either no offense to them, I think they're a bit like stupid, or they're kind of a bit self-obsessed. Like I think
what way exactly?
People focus like too much like on the numbers and wanting to become really famous.
And then so being a bit delusional, is that right?
Yeah, they probably just won't push themselves too much, or just won't have like a end goal in where they want to be, and they probably just won't like motivate or push themselves to it, and that's probably why they like fizzle out anyway.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, I want to make sure I get this correct.
Sure.
So they're focusing too much on the statistics and not enough on artist development. right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's really, really true. So many people do get focused on the following count, the subscriber count, the like count, et cetera, and they sacrifice the artistic integrity. They sacrifice the authenticity, which is what people gravitate towards, in my opinion, anyway. And I think that can be backed up by the artists that we see making music.
Yeah.
I think Porter Robinson's a great example. He definitely makes his own kind of music, and people love that. And so for you yourself, Chrylo, is it difficult for you to stay authentic to the kind of music you want to create?
Not really. Sometimes it's like I make music for the audiences, or I kind of just make music for myself, really, and think if it sounds great, I'm just gonna upload it, probably get it on Spotify, and then put it in probably like one of like my Spotify playlists, and just like have it on repeat, more or less just like listening to it, rather than myself than the audience is listening to it. And probably all those like plays what come for it is probably just like me listening to like my own track like constantly.
That's so cool, though. I love that. I think that, loving what you do, genuinely, deeply loving what you do and valuing what you create is so important, for sure. Was that kind of a process for you to come to a place where you liked your music? Or have you always, like, innately, enjoyed what you make?
Originally, it kind of started out like, obviously it was like for a joke, and it kind of just like progressed in doing like small like flips of like songs into like disco tracks. Progressively it started coming into, I'd either like some of my albums was probably just for like the audience, and it wouldn't really like listen back to them like now, but it's mainly like my recent music where I kind of enjoyed like doing it and listening back to it. I've got like a few collaborations coming up on like this new album, which is like which is slowly coming.
Yeah. And we'll cover that a little bit more later on in the episode.
Yeah.
That's exciting. No, it's cool that you enjoy what you make. In that, because I think a lot of artists struggle with liking their music, and they struggle with being authentic in their music. For you personally, what would you say have been the hardest challenges over the past 5-6 years of making and sharing music?
I'd say the hardest thing is realizing that probably music production is a 1 in a million chance of being famous, and thinking more realistically about it. And for quite a few years, like I had about 200 followers, and thinking I was like massive, and it was probably like the biggest like ego boost, and I think everyone was getting like really tired of me, or just like really annoyed, like, oh yeah, I've got 200 followers, I've got about like 500 plays on a song, I'm like massive, guys. And then by the time it hit like 500, I kind of had to like rethink like how I was kind of doing it, because I did notice like there was probably like 2 or 3 people who just kind of got really annoyed by it, and they just either like stopped talking to me, or just like they wouldn't really engage in like a proper conversation anymore without even me talking about like my own musical projects like to them. So slowly it kind of had to change, really, which is where I started like thinking a bit more realistically, and more or less thinking about myself, thinking about others, and like helping them how like they can progress.
Oh, dude, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. And it can take something that's really jarring or really shocking like that to make an actual shift in our mindset. Was it difficult for you at the time to come to that kind of realization, like, okay, I'm annoying people, or I'm being a little bit out of perspective here? Was it hard for you to accept that? How did you deal with it?
Trying to deal with it is probably like the hardest part of it, because like when I uploaded tracks, I used to like spam probably 30 people on Facebook being like, yeah, go listen to this. And at a point they just like, it come up that they saw the message and they never responded, and they probably still haven't responded like by now, but I'm just like, okay, right, they're not gonna click it, if I'm forcing it onto them. I think like if you're putting tracks or like saying like to someone's face to go listen to something, I think mentally they just think, nope, I'm not gonna listen to it. So it was really hard to like get out of the habit of pushing it in people's faces and put the music out there, but where people will want to probably go listen to it without it being pushed in their face. That's kind of like it was mentally challenging. Like, I think my change was, I think it was like an EP which I uploaded. I forgot the name of it. I always forget like the names of like songs or tracks or albums.
And you're very prolific. You make a lot of music, so.
Yeah, I remember I uploaded like a 4-song EP. I really wanted to send it to everyone because it was like probably like my proudest moment, but I thought to myself, no one's gonna listen to it if I do it like this. And then got someone to upload it to like Reddit, like forums and stuff, and it just got like the natural plays from there. And I was like, okay, maybe like not pushing it in someone's face is like probably even better. And I used to like push it in my face to like my mum and dad, saying that, oh yeah, I've got like 100 like plays on this track, and I used to send it to them. And over time I stopped like sending it to them, and they kind of like follow like my like journey as an artist, but they kind of just do it like in their downtime without me pushing it in their face, really.
It's really
that's more or less.
It's really intriguing. I want to thank you for sharing that, because I think it's going to be helpful for other people who are listening as well. I mean, it kind of goes into the whole marketing your music, and how to do it ethically, how to do it effectively, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people have in the past 10 years kind of learned that method of just like shoving it all the time and pushing it for sure. But like you said, it's not always the most effective way. There's better platforms we could share it on. Maybe your platform is Reddit, maybe your platform is Instagram, maybe your platform is TikTok. So you do have to kind of fill it out and figure out, where your base is, where the authentic, organic plays are coming from, for sure. In this same vein, though, of people who kind of ignored you, but some people who do support you, who would you say are like your closest comrades in the game?
Probably like my artist friends who have made like progressively over time of just like I've been sitting in like the Future Funk like community, not really like involved with it, but just like shooting like my tracks out. And I've seen that people go on like voice calls on like Discord, so I kind of just like jumped on there, and slowly over time like people end up like liking like my personality, and then they kind of like my tracks at the same time. So it's quite nice knowing that like people do like me for my personality, because transferring like my like real life personality into like online, it's like a big step. I think some people change like over the microphone if there's like no face involved. I kind of like keep it really authentic like with people, rather than like trying to push for something. And slowly over time I've got like quite a big group of like artist friends who I kind of talk to almost like every day, like in voice chats. Normally it's like 3 in the morning for me when I talk to them, because the majority of them are like different time zones, or majority are American. So
yeah, man, artist life.
Yeah, it's kind of progressed into that late nights talking with artists.
Man, it's fantastic. No, it's really cool. And once you do get into the music scene, I feel like it is very welcoming. You can find like your own tribe, and these people that support you and encourage you, and you can support them as well. You mentioned something else really interesting, which is about personality, and I really resonate with that. I think that our personality shows through whatever we're doing, and I think that human personality is what people can vibe with and kind of respond to, And so the more authentically that we can share it, like the more authentic attention we can receive, for our music or our paintings or our designs or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, man. I agree 100% on that. Let's look at the future a little bit. You have been diligently working on a new album. Talk to us about the album. Where are you at with it right now? What are the themes? What's the sounds? What can we look forward to on the album?
Well, currently, the album, I believe it's either going to be 11 or 12 tracks long, if I'm correct in saying. Let me just go to the SoundCloud. Yeah, between like 10 to 12 songs. It's kind of energetic disco as well. Some are some slow songs, some songs have been released but will be put forward to like the album. One of my recent songs, like Peach Boy, that one's going to be like on the album. I do have like a few other collaborations with Fawn as well, which will be on the album. I've got one with Azra, who was recently on this podcast as well. Who else? Someone called Tokyo Wonder. One of my close friends, Yetz, he's going to be on the album. And hopefully, I'm not really certain, I think someone called Santino is going to be on the album as well. Hopefully, I'm not sure. I haven't really heard back from him
Fingers
for
crossed.
about 3 days.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome though. It sounds like a really, really exciting album. I can't wait to hear the full version. As I said, I've already loved your previous stuff. Do you prefer to release singles or EPs or albums, like a fuller body of work? I'm curious about this because you do have a very large library of songs, and it's kind of a hot topic right now. As far as like a lot of artists putting out singles because they're easier for marketing, they're easier to get more attention. But there's some artists that do prefer to put out full lengths of work, like Madian or the 1975, Ariana Grande. So where do you kind of fall in that conversation? Singles or EPs?
I quite like singles because it gives the flexibility of like, if you make something, you don't have to fit it to like some mood of like an album, which you're probably going for. The only reason like for this album is because I've kind of noticed that quite a lot of plays do come from like albums on Spotify rather than singles. I think if like there's an album on Spotify and it's like newly uploaded, like this new Tame Impala like album, I think people just like pick songs which they like. They probably don't like all of them, but they just pick them, put them in their playlist, which I do notice on like my SoundCloud, you can look at like which playlists like your songs get put into, and I've noticed like EPs and albums like in the past, it's just like 1 or 2 songs from the album where people have like put it into like their own playlists and just like constantly on like repeat every day, I assume. But I think it's like at that point where originally I was like against doing an album because I didn't really want to stick to like one same mood across the board, or like kind of like an abstract of what I was going for, because it kind of like pulls back my freedom in making music. Really, I think that's where I kind of stand on it. I personally like singles, but if it's like streaming, then it'll probably have to be an album.
That's super interesting. That's a really interesting insight for sure. I understand completely. It is all about artistic integrity and how you express yourself. The kind of message you want to portray and send to people. Talk about that for just a second, if you could. Whenever you're making songs, and you've said already previously about sometimes you're making just something you want to make, sometimes you're making something for audiences to enjoy. When you are making music, are you trying to tell a story? Are you trying to express an inspiration? Like, what is kind of your ambition with the music that you make?
Normally I just go for what sounds good. I don't really have like any mood or like any aim for like the end product. I kind of just like go for it if it sounds good and it like resonates well with me. I'm like, yeah, this is like really good, and kind of like try to act as like the audience alongside the producer as well. So I'll probably make it for about like an hour, forget about it for about 2 days, re-listen to it. I'll be like, okay, this is really good, and then be like, yeah, I like it, I'm gonna carry on and finish it. That's probably like where it is. I don't really go for like any mood or like anything which I create.
Oh, fantastic. No, it's so organic. I love it. I'm the same way as well. Like, I'll just jump in the studio, make a little riff, come back to it a week later and say, oh, that's a banger or that's trash.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Kind of choose where to go from there. So I totally understand.
The issue is like, issue is like when I feel like quite a lot of the time is when I make a song, I think it's like, it's gonna pop off, it's gonna be great, upload it to SoundCloud. A week later, it's got like 150 plays. I'm like, okay, maybe not. I'll try again.
Yep. I think we've all been there at least once. I don't know why that happens, but it seems like for every music producer I've met, like the songs that they love the most are the ones that bomb the hardest, and it's kind of like, can't win them all.
I kind of compare it to like cooking.
Okay.
Like you make something and you think it tastes so good because you made it, and then you give it to someone else. They're like, it's like 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
And you're just like standing there like you don't really understand what's going on.
Yeah, you're like, we're not friends anymore, man.
Yeah, basically.
Oh my gosh, no, dude, for sure. In your opinion, what are the character traits about yourself that have kept you going through the last 5 years? You've talked a lot about being authentic, about the stuff you've learned. For you, though, what do you feel like are the personality traits that you have that have kind of guided you along your path as a musician?
I think being carefree is like one of probably like my traits with like the music. I don't really care if it does like great or not. Like mentally, I probably do, but in the moment I probably don't. And I'm quite a chilled out person, so I kind of think to myself quite like realistically, or like just like future terms. I don't really like have like any trait which relates back to like Chrylo. If people like speak to me, it's like just speaking to like pretty a chilled out person. I'm pretty an easygoing person anyway, so.
I love that, man. No, it's an important trait to have as well, because being in the music game, it can get stressful, it can get hard, you know. So to be able to stay in a carefree state of mind, it's pretty respectable for sure.
Yeah.
What can audiences expect from you this upcoming year? Obviously the album is one, but
yeah, hopefully the album.
Yeah.
Probably more singles, just shooting them out. Hopefully the Chrylo project won't die. Hopefully, if I either don't get like bored with it or just kind of like forget about it, I probably won't do that.
All right.
I think it was just constant like singles, probably almost like every 4 weeks, 5 weeks. That's kind of normally like my schedule. It used to be like every 2 weeks or 1 week, but kind of like leading into like my personal life, it's quite like busy at the time, so trying to like fit that in. Normally it's if I like force a song, it kind of just doesn't like resonate well with me. My music creativity just like goes straight down if I'm like forcing it.
No, I totally get that. It's cool as well that you can kind of admit that to yourself and then kind of reflect it into creation. No, for sure. That sounds exciting, by the way. New single every 4 weeks is way more regular than a lot of producers are. So your fans are very, very lucky. As we kind of wrap up the futures, this kind of discussion right here, I wanted to ask if you would send a message to yourself 1 year in the future, if you're comfortable with that.
If I probably rewatch this like within a year, I'll probably just say hi to myself. I don't really have anything special for myself.
All right, Chrylo, 1 year in the future. Chrylo of now says hello. All right, man. I do have one question from the audience. I always take some questions from the audience, and
yeah, sure.
Yours and my mutual friend Azra has a question for you, and he said, "What inspires you the most when making tracks?"
The majority of the time, which inspires me, is just everyone around me, or like my friends around me. They're being around quite a lot of people who make music kind of influences like back on myself to make even more music alongside them, and kind of like doing the journey with them rather than like on myself. I think it's better with friends than like concentrating on yourself.
Facts, man.
That's where I think where it goes.
People, man, people are the ROI, return on investment. Like, they are everything. He had one more question, and he said, "What are your favorite artists to sample?"
Artist sample.
Yeah, artist to sample. Which ones do you like to sample in your music?
Originally it was just like go to YouTube, 80s funk track, and then find something random. I don't really remember like the samples which I use. Recently it's been more authentic. There's not really like any samples in it. It's more of like either like recorded or I've had like people record stuff for me. So I'm kind of like trying to stay on the recorded like music side rather than like the sample side. It's kind of like I'm probably like borderline 700 followers, so I think transferring it to Spotify, it's kind of more or less a big relief knowing that I can put my music on Spotify without someone coming up to me being like, you have a copyright strike, you're gonna have to pay this amount of money. So
no, absolutely, man. No,
yeah,
that's really, really true, and it's unfortunate because genres like new disco, future funk, French house, like they are very sample heavy, and having to go through the loopholes of getting a sample clear is very, very difficult. So it can be limiting to your artist career. If you do rely on samples and you're trying to get it to Spotify and Apple Music. But it's cool that you've actually been able to transfer your creation from being sample based to now doing other kinds of stuff as well. It's really, really awesome. All right, man. So thank you so much for joining us on the episode. We had an incredible conversation. I love the themes of authenticity. I've been really big on that lately, so it's cool that you and me can talk about it as well. For the last section, we always do a speed round. I'm going to ask a very quick question. Please give a very quick response. Are you ready?
Yes, okay.
All right, man, let's get into this. 3, 2, 1. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite food?
My mind just said food.
Food is my favorite food. Favorite day of the week?
Probably Saturday.
Favorite movie?
Oh man, Spider-Man.
Which one?
Any of them. Any of them.
Okay.
Any of them.
Favorite song at the moment?
Probably Doja Cat, Say So.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Probably food.
What countries do you want to visit?
I want to visit America, probably around Europe. That's probably it.
What languages do you speak?
English only, unfortunately.
Name one person alive or dead, or not born yet, that you want to have a conversation with.
Ooh. Probably Michael Jackson. I think a conversation with him would be pretty interesting.
And how do you want people to think of you?
Probably carefree. That's what I like people saying to me.
All right, man. Fantastic. Chrylo, thank you so much for coming on today, man. Sitting down, having this conversation. I loved everything we talked about. Is there anything you personally want to say to the listeners before we wrap it up?
I personally want to say thank you to Azra because I wouldn't be able to do this interview otherwise. I probably just would be doing a normal day, either sitting in my bed doing absolutely nothing.
All right, man.
But yeah, I want to thank him for introducing me to you as well.
All right, Azra, I thank you as well. We had an incredible conversation today. To everyone listening, I do encourage you to please check out his music. As you can hear from the conversation we already had, he's very big on authenticity, consistency, quality. It's all there. I have listened to nearly his entire discography, and I highly recommend it. The sampling is incredible. The original aspects of the production is incredible. The artwork, it all sounds very, very polished and very, very energetic and upbeat, and I absolutely love it. So please check him out. Links are in the description box below, and I'll be tagging him across social media, so please drop him a follow, give him a try. And until next time, my friends, take care.
And goodbye.
Hey guys, Jaye here. Thank you so much, as always, for watching that episode of the Creators Lounge podcast with special guest Chrylo. Guys, it would mean so much to me if you could please support the journey, either at my Ko-fi account right here or at my PayPal right here. Just send me a donation on PayPal. Either way would be fantastic. I really appreciate all of the support. Helps me make more content and better content, and it keeps me going. I am working on making a Patreon, and so I hope to launch that within 1-2 months maximum of dropping this video. But so look out for that as well. But until then, please guys, help me out by sending me some donations at these links, and I will see you on the next piece of content. I love you guys.